In 2004, there was an entire TV network created to fight stereotypes, more specifically, Muslim stereotypes. The creators' mission goal was very simple. They wanted to amplify peace, showcase progress, elevate the unheard voices of their community, the misconceptions and the misunderstandings that plagued them. And then, in that very studio they created together, one of the co-founders beheads his wife. The Hassan Sayed case is one of the most layered, complex, and brutal crimes to wrap one's mind around. This case is about power, patriarchy, forced silence, and a media storm that got everything just half right. It's a story about what happens when the image you build becomes your shield and someone tries to threaten everything into the ground. A quick pause before we really dive in. This is not a story about religion. This case has been labeled by some news outlets as an honor killing, which let's just be clear on one thing, okay? This story is about one single man. This was not an act of religious extremism. This was not condoned by Islam. And this was absolutely not about culture. Religion does not hurt people. It is people who misuse the religion or twist the teachings of their religion to fit their own agenda that hurt others. And not everyone in a certain religion is bad, just as not everyone who share the same values or principles in life are the same. This is domestic violence, homicide, plain and brutal. And using religion or cultural terms to frame it otherwise only hurts the survivors who need support the most. Immigrant women, Muslim women, and women of color are disproportionately impacted by these religious violent acts, and they deserve better than a headline stereotype. So let's tell the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth. Hi Digestives, welcome to Crimes Digested, a place where we try to digest senseless crimes. If you are new here, welcome. And if this is not your first time seeing my face, welcome back. I want to take a quick second to say thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join me. On Crimes Digested, we emphasis on try to delve into the most perplexing true crime stories happening around us every single day. Some are sad, some unbelievable, some even unexpectedly tragic. But most of all, these stories are a constant reminder of the cruelty and dark nature of humanity. Today's story not only has all the aforementioned elements, but will have you honestly dizzy by its brutality, okay? A very quick disclaimer, and then we'll get into today's story. I promise everything in this video is alleged, and sometimes my own personal opinion, no one asked for, okay? Most of the information is something you can find online. And you know how the internet never lies, it's never wrong, you know? I'm just kidding, but please do form your own opinions. And if you have any additional information, or if you see anything misleading or wrong in this video, please I do encourage you to leave them down below in the comments so we can all read it and learn, and learn from each other. As always, let's try to be respectful to one another in the comment section. So that we can all foster a safe space for every single person to share their thoughts, their opinions, their feelings, what they ate, and all of that, okay? Keeping the comment section clean is like keeping your bedroom clean, you know? And who doesn't like a clean room, right? Anyways, with that said, let's get into it. Muzammil, aka Mo Hassan, is a Pakistani immigrant who came to the United States when he was a teenager, about 17 years old. Just like a majority of immigrants, he worked very hard. Growing up, he also did well academically. He was on the path of a successful American dream, or nightmare, depending on who you ask, okay? But you know the dream, right? Go to school, get a good grade, graduate relatively close to top of your class if you can be in the top percentile, find a well-paying job, get married, settle down, have kids, and hopefully you'll save enough money to barely make ends meet before your body gives up on you and you can no longer work and you are too old to do anything. So after getting his MBA in the late 90s, he went on to become a banker in Buffalo, New York. And that would have been it. He would have been another person stuck in the cycle of 9 to 5. But fortunately for him, his wife was a woman with drive. She was the definition of behind every successful man is a strong woman. She was concerned about the disdain most people had towards her community. She knew that that wasn't the future she wanted for her 2 children. And so she pitched an idea to him, a TV media that has a strong representation for Muslim Americans, children's just like hers. The mission was an ambitious one and very personal, but it needed to be done to challenge the negative portrayals of Muslims in the media, to promote a peaceful and progressive stories of the everyday Muslim American, to offer a new voice in post 9/11 America. 9/11 is an already sensitive subject that left many Americans feeling raw and hurt. So you can already imagine the immense undertaking this project was going to be. But this couple were nothing short of dedicated to this goal, okay? Because their network would encourage and promote a strong identity for these young kids growing up in a world that deemed them evil before they even knew what good or evil, like what the difference between good and bad was. And so in 2004, Mo Hassan and his wife Aasiya Zubair Hassan launched a Bridges TV in New York City, one of the very first Muslim American television network. The most unique thing about this network is the English broadcasting, which was something novel at the time, okay? Mo was the CEO, of course, and his wife Aasiya was the force behind the scenes. And that's not me being hyperbolic. She was, in the literal sense, a woman wearing many hats. She was the head of production, responsible for the branding of the company and networking. She did practically everything. Makes you wonder what the big man upstairs was doing while she's running around trying to keep everything together and afloat. But I guess the title of CEO was enough, and that's all he had going for himself, in my very humble opinion, of course. But I mean, looking in from the outside, when people like talk about power couples, right? This is what they meant. The two were seen as this power couple with a purpose, just powerful, an unstoppable force. But what no one saw, at least not clearly enough, was the noose around Aasiya's throat, the thin ice under her feet. Not in a million years would anyone believe that the powerful woman who commanded attention practically everywhere she went was trapped in her own marriage. According to the court documents, Aasiya endured years of emotional and physical abuse. Most was described by many as being controlling, manipulative, and violent. He would reportedly berate her constantly every chance he got, dictated her every movement, and used his influence to isolate her. Friends said that Aasiya often showed up with visible bruisings, brushed off as every DV victim's go-to word. Accidents. I'm not blaming her, nor am I in the position to criticize or judge her. I simply say that because, for the most part, these injuries do not look accidental. They look very much intentional. But I feel like the discussion of DV feels like a taboo to many people. It's an uncomfortable truth and conversation to have. And that discomfort is one of the main reasons why it's an accident, or I tripped and fell, or I accidentally walked into an X object is usually a satisfactory answer. But let me tell you, Aasiya was a brave woman, okay? Because eventually she worked up the courage and started to confide in a small circle. She documented the abuse she was seeking out and speaking to counselors. Slowly but surely, she built a quiet case, carefully, because she feared what would happen if Mo ever found out before she was ready. She was terrified for her life of what he might do if he knew she wanted a divorce. If you thought discussing DV was taboo, then you don't want to know how people, especially someone from conservative background, thinks of divorce. To them, there is no greater shame than leaving a marriage or their partner leaving them, especially someone with status as he does. But a woman who has made up her mind is like a dog with a bone. Okay, you can't get it from her. She may have been scared, but she was done. There was no going back anymore. By February 2009, she finally files for divorce. And in addition to the divorce proceedings, she also files for a protective order the very same day. On February 12, 2009, just days after the divorce filings, Aasiya returns to Bridges TV studio in Orchard Park, New York, to drop off some documents. Her one and only fatal mistake. Because unbeknownst to her, Mo was there waiting and seething. There were surveillance videos that caught the moments before everything happened, but not the actual attack itself. And you can disagree with me, that's fine, but I'm honestly glad the act wasn't caught on tape. The disrespect shown to the woman he supposedly loved, the mother of his children, was one of, if not the most savage acts ever recorded. Inside his private office, Mo stabbed Aasiya over 40 times. 40. She has stab wounds on her neck, face, back. Do you realize the hate and energy required to look someone in the eyes and pierce their body for more than 40 times? And the final act of barbarity was him taking the time to decapitate her. He cut her head clean off her neck. And once he was sure and certain that it was done, he stands up, looks down at her head next to her body. Deliberate, symbolic. He turns his back to her and walks off. The imagery was horrific, to say the least. And the message was clear. If I can't control you in this life, I'll erase you even in death. Even your body will not be put to rest in one piece. Mo didn't flee the scene. He didn't even try to lie, at least not about his wife's whereabouts. Oh no. He calmly walked into the police station that very same evening and in a very flat and emotionless tone says, "My wife is dead." Police respond immediately, rushing to the studio where they find Aasiya's body laying on the ground, bloodied, head detached from the body. One detective who was at the scene of the crime later described what he saw as the most brutal domestic murder he'd seen in decades, which is telling in of itself, but also why. Why do we have these crimes at all? Why are there so many instances of such cruelty to the point of making such comparisons? Why would one person deem someone else's life so little? Almost immediately after the discovery of Aasiya's corpse, many national headlines dubbed the massacre honor killing. The New York Post, CNN, and others lashed onto this angle. The implication was that Aasiya has somehow violated a cultural norm, that this couldn't have been anything but religiously motivated, that it was about Islam, the very thing that Aasiya has dedicated the last few years fighting against. The extremist stereotypes portrayed in Hollywood and mainstream media of her religion was being used as the basis to explain her death at the hand of her own husband, or soon to have been her ex-husband, the man she thought shared her ideals, the person who should have been her protection, has now flushed years of her hard work down the drain along with her life. Fortunately, though, there were swift opposition against this narrative. Many Muslim American advocates and scholars pushed back hard. The Council of American Islamic Relations, Islamic Society of North America, and the Muslim Women's Institute for Research and Development were quick to condemn the labeling of this murder, Aasiya's murder, as an honor killing. They all released statements saying this was not religion, this was not tradition, this was murder. And that's on what? That's on period, okay? Feminist organizations also joined the call. Their message: stop reducing female victims of color to stereotypes. Stop turning abusers into this glamorized monsters. Focus on the patterns, not the headlines. At trial, Mo, who initially had 4 lawyers, fired 3 of them. And the 4th one, he only kept on for counsel, as required by law. He decided that he would be representing himself, okay? And yes, after brutally killing his wife, he stood in court during his 2 hours closing remark and told a story that paints a completely different picture. He claimed he was the real victim. He says Aasiya was emotionally abusive, that she manipulated him, and he was just a slave to her rage and temper. He claimed that the murder was an act of emotional distress, not premeditation. Just to show you how callous he was, right after his arrest, Mo gave an interview during which he said that he felt, quote, relief by her passing, and, quote, I felt like I had escaped from an Al-Qaeda terrorist camp, and the safest place was the Orchard Park police station. I felt safe and secured with them, end quote. No one was buying it. How can they when the prosecution had just laid out years of abuse, not his, but of his wife's, years of Aasiya's fear, her protective orders, her diary entries, and witness testimonies from friends and therapists. At least he was able to feel safe somewhere. Not once in the past 5 to 6 years did his wife feel safe around him at all. Prosecution presented security footages, tracked timelines, and even emails Mo had sent to Aasiya just days before the murder. Emails in which he threatened to ruin her. This is not to say that he couldn't have been a victim, but there were no evidence to support these claims and accusations, right? Whereas his wife's mistreatment could be dated all the way back to 6 years prior. The evidence against him was damning, to say the least. And so finally, in March 2011, Mo Hassan was found guilty of second-degree murder and was subsequently sentenced to 25 years to life. And the judge didn't mince words during his sentencing, okay? This was a calculated act of brutality, they said. A permanent sentencing of a woman finding her voice. That concluded his trial, but his punishment has just begun. At present, Mo is serving his sentence at Clinton Correctional Facility in New York. Unsurprisingly, Bridges TV folded shortly after the murder of Aasiya's, but it's unfortunate. This was something that she had created to make the world even just a tiny bit better. An idea with a noble mission, but its founder had destroyed its credibility. I do try to find something positive in these cases, but I feel extremely yucky each and every time because the harder I look for them, the more I'm realizing that some, if not most, of these positive movements, if they even happen at all, should have already been in place. They happen after the cost of a life. Because following her passing, advocates for DV survivors in immigrant and Muslim communities began pushing harder. They wanted more culturally sensitive shelters, legal support for women who fear retaliation, public education, campaigns on abuse in all communities. A memorial fund was also established in Aasiya's name, and her family released a statement asking people to, quote, speak up for victims who suffered in silence. While many headlines dubbed an honor killing can, in some regions, refer to murders where family members will kill a woman to protect their family honor. However, that's a term filled with complex and heavy colonial baggage. The gag is, Aasiya didn't break a taboo. She just simply realized her worth, and she filed for divorce in America in 2009. That should not have been reason enough for someone to take her life. Framing her murder as anything else, honor-based or whatever else, removes the abuser's responsibility. It offers him a shield to hide behind. It says he did this because of his culture, instead of he did this because he was an absolute monster and an abuser. Mo Hassan's crime was textbook domestic violence, and calling it anything else, that's doing a disservice to the victim. According to some sources, Aasiya had tried multiple times in the past to leave, and it seems like she couldn't because he would strong arm her back. And so she finally convinced him to see a marriage counselor, I'm sure in an attempt to compromise and salvage whatever was left of her marriage. But Mo reportedly manipulated the sessions and minimized everything. Even one of her counselors said that she was concerned for Aasiya's life. That's how unhinged this man looked to the counselor, and yet nothing changed. Now, I'm about to go into a quick little rant, and it's not really important, so you can skip to the end of this video if you want to, but I honestly think it speaks volumes about the type of person that Mo was. I personally think Mo Hassan was so comfortable and confident that he would get away with all of this because of the free pass that men get, especially in the immigrant communities. And no, this is not a man bashing rant. Notice I didn't say all men, just some of them. And I said this because Aasiya was his third wife. The first one was a Caucasian woman who had children with him. And the second wife was a Pakistani American Muslim woman who left after 13 months of marriage. Months, 13 months, not years. And their reason for the divorce? Violence and domestic abuse. But no one questioned his character. Rather, the women were blamed for not staying. Especially after his marriage with Aasiya, everyone thought, well, she's able to stay in her marriage and she seems happy, so it couldn't have been him. He couldn't have been the problem. The first was just, well, too American. And the second one, well, she was just impatient. She wasn't patient enough with him. He got away for so long because no one took the time to really ask if Aasiya was okay. It's not like people can wear masks in public, right? Everyone just wanted to see Mo as a good person, and she was a brave and committed wife to her husband. But just because she wanted to make it work doesn't mean that she wasn't suffering the same abuse and violence the other ladies faced. Seeing how the other women were being blamed for his action, that doesn't help her either. She was going to be labeled as another woman who couldn't make or stay in her marriage or make her relationship work the moment she left. The more men are overlooked, no, the more any abuser is overlooked, man or woman, the more likely they are to get away with their abuse. That's why I hate when someone starts an argument with, well, that's just how men are. I automatically don't even want to have a conversation with said person because that person doesn't want to have a healthy discussion. They're either A, a man who wants to explain why and how much of a bastard he is, excuse my language, or B, a woman who is willing or has resigned herself to abuse and manipulation. Either way, you can't have a productive conversation with someone like that. You can't. Nothing will change if we don't start breaking those molds of that's how it is, or oh, that's just it is what it is. I also want to say this as well. There are definitely women who are abusive, controlling, and manipulative as well. Okay, I don't want you to think I only believe men to be all of those things. There's also no denying the fact that women are at a disproportional risk of being abused, and women aren't usually excused, especially if their abuse is an obvious one. From my personal perspective, you can correct me if I'm wrong, an abused woman is more often than not told to hang in there, pray over your husband, or forgive and forget. My favorite is, what did you do? Do you respect your husband? Whereas men are usually not believed, which is a whole other story that needs to be fixed as well. All of these advices are simply shackles around a victim's ankle, and it needs to stop. It takes a lot of courage for a victim to reach out for help and to not be believed, or for someone to blame them for the abuse that they're suffering. That's another form of abuse, and we have to do better. Another wild discovery about this whole story was the moment leading up to the murder. Mo reportedly went to the TV station with the then 4-year-old and 6-year-old son that he shared with Aasiya and his teenage child from his previous marriage. He then left them in the car parked outside the studio, strolls into the station, kills their mother, and then comes back out, looks them dead in the eyes as if nothing happened. That is scary. And I pray you never have the misfortune of knowing someone like that. In conclusion, this story isn't about Islam. Again, it's not even about Pakistan or the Muslim community. It's about what happens when a woman tries to leave and the man she wants to leave can't or won't let her go. Aasiya Zubair Hassan should be remembered not for the cruel and tragic manner in which she died, but for how she lived. The strong, intelligent, and kind soul that she was, a woman full of courage, and her quiet resistance, a fierce and deeply committed mother who wanted to give Muslim women a voice, their community a voice in the modern America. This is who she was, and that's a story that shouldn't be lost beneath all the noise. So if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic abuse, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I'll leave the number down in the description box below, or you can visit the hotline.org website and make sure to wipe your search history after, okay, when you're done, just to be safe, okay? Use caution. You're not alone. You are strong. You are not to be blamed, and there are people ready and willing to help. So reach out. That concludes today's story though. Again, thank you so much for joining me on this little look into the Bridges TV decapitation murder and the end of a bright story that lit up the lives of those who were fortunate enough to be graced and influenced by her light. I appreciate you so much. You can't even begin to take a guess or a gander, okay? Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and if you have anything that you want me to talk about, any case that tickles your curiosity, leave them below so we can take a look at them together. But as always, stay safe, stay smart, stay curious, and check on your loved ones. If you know someone who might be feeling stuck, reach out a helping hand to them. And now, I'm going to let you go. I hope you have a fantastic day. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.